Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and there's a bunch of dwarf units coming in Thrones of Decay, mostly slayers, but we have to talk about these guys because they obviously add some difference to your roster, where most, well, like a grand majority of your current dwarves are very heavily armored and focus on either gunpowder or just being your very strong shield wall. However, with these slayers, things are going to change up for you. There's a few other units also which are going to change up how you can play around with your dwarves. So let's do like we did with the Empire, sit down and just really discuss some stats and how they play on the battlefield. So we'll start off with the Thunderers. These are the Grudge Raker variant. You might be wondering what the difference is between this and a standard Thunderer. Well, the Thunderer has much more range and has less missile strength, whereas the Grudge Raker has a shorter range but punches much harder. 60 missile strength is very, very good. The best way to kind of compare them is actually more to the Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses, which the stats are on screen right now, so you'd be using them in a similar sense. The benefit of this is you've got a short-range shotgun unit that can hit a Chaos Warrior or Graveguard units very hard. And you're going to get them pretty early into your campaign as, yeah, it's a tier 3 unit. Surprisingly, the Iron Drakes are below that, which is weird. Well, at least to me. But that's going to be quite beneficial to you if you're playing as pretty much any of the dwarf factions, as you do have some heavily armored enemies nearby. Thorgrim and Ungrim, for example, do have to deal with the Chaos Dwarfs right next to them, Grombrindle with the Dark Elves, Belegar with, well, pretty much everyone that Belegar's fighting. Thorek is perfectly fine, and then obviously up north, Malachi needs some armor piercing anyway, because you'll be dealing with a lot of Chaos Warriors. Their range isn't perfect. Well, it's a shotgun unit, what you expect, but they hit very hard. As a unit, they're very good for your front line. Obviously, remember that this is still a dwarf, which means that it is, in fact, shielded. So you've got hand weapons and shields. These units will be able to act as a front line afterwards. They won't get all the benefits that normal dwarf warriors would, but that doesn't matter. You've got these guys, you've got maybe some crawlers in the back shooting over, you've got thunderers on the side shooting into it. Yeah, you've got the gun line. Obviously, in campaign, you can make them even stronger, depending on the skill points that you get from different characters, so they end up becoming a really good unit. I've tested them against something fairly armored, which is the Graveguard, and they perform as expected. Honestly, fairly happy with this as a trooper. While their damage is not 100% perfect, and I do imagine that with skill points they're going to be a lot better, you would have noticed that, yeah, they push back really hard. It looks like the bullets can disrupt formations of foot troops really well, as one of the Graveguard units was basically being flung around. It was pretty interesting. It was really interesting. I think they're alright. With support with other stuff, you basically get more dwarfs, right? You could go for a lot more long range. I've been using quite a lot of long range. Hell, I've been using Malachi with cannons right now. But as it stands, this is a good frontline unit with a good punch. And one thing is that their formation seems to hold up really well. So once you've got them there, the ones at the front are fighting with hand weapon and shield, but the ones at the back are still shooting, which is better than some units, which just charge right in with the whole thing, which is weird. Alright, we're going to start off with one of the Slayer units. There's going to be quite a lot of them. The first one being the Slayer Pirate. So this one's a pretty interesting troop because it is a close quarter infantry trooper. These guys are, yeah, essentially free company for the militia if you're used to playing as the Empire, but they are much stronger. They're obviously unbreakable because, yeah, Slayers. They can fire on the move and they're fast for a dwarf. They're a skirmishing troop, and they're there to go straight into the enemy lines. They're not your shooter. I mean, yeah, I know these are a shooty trooper, but you're using them to fire as they get to the enemy. Don't have them stopping just to fire. I don't think that they're really good for just that. You can boost up their missile strength, but they're not really geared for that. You have to pick up these troops from the tier 3 building. This is the first of the Slayer buildings, unless you're playing as Ungrim, who's got access to them from the very beginning. They're pretty good, but they're only pretty situational, unless you're going for Slayers, which some people tend to not go for, but I think it's kind of wasted if you don't, because Slayers are good, you know, having unbreakable units that can hold the line, that can stay in combat for a fair amount of time. It's going to make sure that if you're maybe struggling a little bit, maybe you can have that little bit of extra time in the battlefield that you do need. They will struggle against heavily armored troops. Deathblow will help them, however, but they do excel at killing off chaff and, you know, light armor troopers. Overall, I like them. If you're going for a Slayer build, which every now and then you might go for a full Slayer army, that's really good. As a support when it comes to standard troopers, like a just standard mixed dwarf army, then you're likely just going to be turtling as per usual. That's dwarf tactics, so you're better off getting grudge rakers, I guess, or even just thunderers and quarrelers. They're not that essential for Trooper, but they are very important for theming. I like them, but that's because I've been playing Slayer stuff, and I like the idea of having a Slayer shooter, which can also support from the side. They're not bad, they're just not a great unit, and every roster has that not great unit anyway. Okay, this is where things get a little bit different. We've got the Doomseekers now, which are Slayers, but even angrier. I know, it sounds weird, but Doomseekers are freaking epic. I love them. If you like Slayer units and you like killing stuff really quickly, these guys are going to be able to do that. They're anti-infantry, they're armor-piercing also, they know how to pack a punch. I'm a big fan of these guys. I've loved them since they were really frumpy-looking miniatures on the tabletop. Oh my god, I actually have to start repainting those. But yeah, if you like playing aggressive dwarfs and you like having a lot of melee, a lot of frontline, these guys are really good for that. And the fact that they've also got Vanguard makes them upfront and personal. Obviously high spell resistance as every single other type of Slayer. They got a little vortex when they die that can be acquired when you start doing the whole campaign stuff and going into the tech tree, which makes them really, really good. I've got no complaints. I've honestly got no complaints regarding these guys. They're really, really fun. They're a tier 4 unit, which does mean that you're going to have to take a while because it is the Slayer building, but honestly, if you like playing aggressive, which I've been doing a lot with Dwarfs lately, especially with Update 5.0, it's probably a unit that you're going to bring fairly often. Oddly enough, by the way, they're counted as a tier 3 unit, but it's in a tier 4 building, so yeah, odd. The fact that these lads also have damage resistance that is increased with every kill that they make, and a vortex which does great damage against any hordes, makes them really good when you're dealing against Skaven, pretty much orcs and goblins if you're dealing against a big war army, anything that has rather large size armies, which you're going to be seeing fairly often. If you're pushing up into the Chaos Wastes, for example, you might get attacked by 2 or 3 Chaos Warrior armies at the same time. It does happen. So yeah, you've got a lot of stuff to throw right back at them. They are great at melee. You can improve them as you go on just to make them even killier. Put them with a Slayer Lord, make them even stronger too. Hell, you can see them here just ripping apart Graveguard, which generally do quite well when fighting against dwarfs. But here they're just dying like flies. It's actually quite cool to see. It's about time that a really good Berserker type unit was introduced to the Dwarfs. Slayers are good as they stand, but these are Slayers +2, you know? Like, they are very, very good at what they do. I am a massive fan of these. I was a bit disappointed that they didn't have, like, their flail attacks and so on, but as dual axes, they work out really well. I imagine that flails must be really complicated with the style of flails that were for Warhammer Fantasy, like for the Doomseekers specifically. Alright, we're going to talk about the Goblinhewer. Now, this one has been quite interesting for people because some people are into it, some people are not. It's unbreakable, it's got armor-piercing missiles, it's also anti-large and fast for a dwarf. This is a war machine, but unlike any other war machine that we've pretty much had so far. The slow ammunition means that it's not really going to get a bunch of attacks out there, but it's there to take out a big monster, take out a character. It's really good at what it does for that. I honestly think of it as a very situational creation, which is very much similar to how it was on the tabletop. Again, it's not going to be this big, amazing thing, but afterwards you've got a Slayer crew which you can easily hide somewhere else. You can get this in a tier 3 building, and yeah, it's the same building that you'll be getting cannons and so on. You're going to be naturally working through that, especially as cannons, if you're playing as Malachi, are absolutely insane right now. But yeah, let's talk about it in battle. I've got a fast forward clip here. It does decent damage to hordes, like it can pretty much wipe out a horde very, very quickly. If you pair this up with an engineer who's obviously got some restock now, you'll be able to get the most benefit out of this, at least in my opinion. But it's still something that has very low amounts of ammunition. Incredibly fast payload though, incredibly fast, which I guess does add to its usability. Obviously again, triple speed, but you can see that the units are dying super, super quick. Even a horde of zombies isn't getting too close. Its benefit is it can almost take out a Valk really, really quickly, and I think that that shows how well it fires. The Valk itself is generally quite a durable monster, and it does have quite high regen, so seeing it essentially almost deleted and its leadership taken down shows how good this is. Is it a good unit? Well, for low range, not so much. For damage output, yes, it's very, very good. You're definitely going to have to keep it protected. Have it up front there. Have some warriors right in front protecting it. And then everything else behind firing as support. It does do very, very good stuff. And you're going to notice it when you use it versus Great Unclean Ones, Bloodthirsters. Anything that is generally very, very durable, but you need to try and take out early. I would say in terms of armies, you'll probably bring one in an army, sometimes two. If you're taking out, like, say, for example, Lizardmen, you might want to bring out more, but they're not going to be one of these Doomstacker units. Could be possible if you're very good with micro, and obviously you have enough engineers to be able to restock their ammunition as much as possible. But yeah, all in all, the main thing about the Goblinhewer, and this is the thing, right? On the tabletop, it wasn't too great too, but it was pretty, right? Like, it was cool, and sometimes cool factor trumps everything else, and I feel like cool factor did really come here and show off that this is a really cool unit. It would have been better, I think, a lot better, if they would have made it melee also. Yes, it didn't do that in the tabletop, but it's something that really should have been a case. Like, it should move up and hurt. In this case, it just acts like a normal war machine, which I feel kind of devalues it a little bit. But I'll tell you what, I've been playing around with it, and I've done campaigns. I've seen it hurt Dark Elf Hydras really, really well. Literally right before they were able to get to my front lines. This was in campaign where I've been able to boost them up a bit more too. So yeah, the value is definitely there. The Hydra was not able to hit my front line and damage what was left of my already damaged warriors. The last generic unit in this DLC is the Thunderbarge. So the Thunderbarge is big. That's the big thing to say, I guess. Because it does a lot of damage, it does big damage, big health pool, big stats. I mean, it is something that a lot of people have been waiting for a while. This never had a miniature back in the day, but it did have rules in the Big Red Book, which basically made it absolutely disgusting, and it is the same way here too. It's one of those centerpiece units that a lot of people were really expecting for the Dwarfs. They're slow moving, but you can use a ability to make them move a little fast. They also have a harpoon, but I'll tell you what, I've mostly missed with it. It's maybe just my luck. It's one of these things where, yeah, it's likely my luck. Now, this is a tier 5 unit, which means that you're going to have to wait a while to be able to get it. It's in the same building tree as the Master Engineer and all of the flying copters too, so it's not really going to take that long for you to get, especially as the copters being pretty good right now. I do feel like they're in a very good spot. Now, when we have to look at them in battle, I mean, these guys perform very, very well. This is because they've got multiple cannons on the actual ship. They've also got access to a bunch of thunderers that will be doing a lot of damage. And, yeah, they drop payloads over hordes. So if you're fighting in a choke point battle, which are becoming increasingly rare lately, but those are where the Thunderbarge really, really shine. There's some really big damage that you can do, especially when they start dropping the payload. You can get so many kills. This is not invincible, by the way. You will be taking some damage. Like stuff like flyers will hurt it. Archers targeting it will knock it down. So you do have to defend it. You can do a full stack, I think, especially since they can move quite well. Because you can get it with the thrusters, I guess, to go 90 speed. That makes it really, really quick. But it will take damage naturally, and then obviously some other stuff can snipe it out. I think it's one of the best units that the Dwarfs do have available to them, though, because it is clearly very, very different. It is very, very unique, and it's just so impressive as you see it knock down enemy lines. I really do think that this is going to be one of the centerpieces that are really hard to beat. If in the future the Dwarfs get more DLC, nothing will be as impressive as the Thunderbarge. It's very, very obvious. I've done this in battles where I've been able to fight a lot of Skaven, and yep, they just get wiped out. As you know, like, I had a choke point battle actually at one point when I was doing my testing, and yeah, just literally Dwarf Warriors, the land ship, and watch it do its thing. It was great. It was absolutely great. I'm really pissed off that I didn't actually record that because it was just during my testing phase. But one thing, obviously, is that this is a very expensive unit. You're not going to be able to field a lot of them unless you have a lot of money in the bank, because the upkeep is just very, very, very high. It's a unit that everyone's going to be lying for, but it might wreck your economy, that's for sure. Because they're so fun to use, you're going to want to use more. It's effective. It's very effective. Pair that up with some cannons, organ guns, and obviously some thunderers and quarrelers. Make sure that you do bring in a Master Engineer just for the sake of it. And yeah, you're good. You're golden. These can be upgraded during your skill line too. Every commander that has the red skill line will be able to boost them up a little bit. But yeah, if you're asking me fun factor, yes, it's stupid fun. Like, holy shit. It is a stupid fun unit to use with any of the Dwarf Lords. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the last two additions, which is the generic Lord, the Demon Slayer, and the generic Hero, the Dragon Slayer. So, these are Slayer characters. Surprise, surprise. And they've got damage, you know, they're unbreakable, they're very good at what they do. The Demon Slayer is a melee expert, he does whirling axes, he's very good at killing off infantry units or characters, whereas the Dragon Slayer is anti-large. He's very good at doing single entity damage to like Valk, Hydras, and even some characters too. Overall, they're fairly decent at what they do. I would say that the Demon Slayer is better though, purely because the Demon Slayer has a lot of skills that buff up generic Slayers too, so if you're going to go for a character build, an army build that focuses around Slayers, you want this. If you want that too, yeah, the Dragon Slayer works too because it's very thematic, but the Dragon Slayer doesn't have a lot of buffs. The Demon Slayer has skills that focus up not only on itself, but also some which boost up to fighting against demons of chaos. You've also got like another skill line which focuses up on missile resistance, upkeep reduction, casualty replenishment. This is all focusing around the Slayers themselves, and then you can pair up that nicely with all the red skill line stuff. Again, really good at what it does and really performs really well. A full Slayer army is completely viable. I would say it is very, very viable, and there's no problems there. Having an Unbreakable Lord is also quite good, and if you can get the right traits on it before recruiting it, you can get pretty high physical resistance, and then add that up with some items to make it really, really tanky. Obviously, you have to keep in mind that Slayers naturally don't have armor, so when they're very low level and they don't have good equipment, they do suffer. The Dragon Slayer just lacks skills, I think. I think that's the big thing. It just lacks some skills. It's got skills to make it very killy, very, very killy, but if it had like a bonus here and there, it might have been better. Sure, your Lord does that, and you're going to be using Dragon Slayers alongside Demon Slayers, but I don't know, it just feels like it's only there to do melee, and it just feels like, well, what's the difference between that and, say, for example, the Thane? The Thane does do a lot better. The Thane is obviously very well armored and so on, so very, very durable. I don't know. I like the Lord. I really like the Lord. The Hero is good when you're theming it, but I feel like it could be a little bit better. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. You could feel like there could be more to him. I mean, Heroic Killing Blow is very, very good as it stands. The damage output, his high weapon strength is very, very good. Charge bonus is good, and 42 speed natural for a Dwarf is actually fairly decent. But yeah, I feel like in terms of this, like the Dwarfs got more theming, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because the addition of the THUNDERBARGE is going to really change up how you play them. The Grudge Rakers are a nice new addition for a good punch, and Slayers, now you can have a full unbreakable army, which is pretty good to cheese. And again, if you get the proper runes that you need and the proper items, yeah, there can be a terror on the battlefield. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. This should be video 2 out of 2 today. I'm not sure if there's going to be a third. There's a lot to come. There's a lot to come. But have a great day. And before anything, actually, I just remembered, I am streaming live on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges. Pop by, say hi, let's talk. And if you are new here, I suggest subscribing. We're getting so close to 100k. It'd be really cool. It costs nothing to you. It just helps me get a little bit more notice on the algorithm. YouTube is a fickle mistress after all. And it would just be nice to get to 100k this year. I think it's doable. But yeah, other than that, have a great day, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon.